All right. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Academy of Creative Coaching. And we are here tonight bringing some great expertise from some of our coaches that are already here, part of the Academy, and making sure that we just bring interesting conversations and information to you all. And tonight I am here with Coach Jay Hurt, relationship coach, and also one of the leaders at Academy of Creative Coaching. I'm sure you've seen him many times before. Um, and we're just like super excited about this topic. We're going to get into something really interesting. And most of you have probably said, I would never do a a workplace romance, but you never know. We just saw some stuff in the headlines, right, Jay?
Yeah, we sure did. We've seen quite a bit in the headlines.
We
So,
won't say right now.
um,
Say there are people
yeah,
power.
that's right. That's exactly right. There's a lot out there about office romances. So we're gonna debunk some myths and talk about if it makes sense. Is can there be a positive to it? Is it all negative? What does that look like? So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I am. I am as well. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it and just talk
Okay.
about just your overall thoughts. I mean, so Jay, first of all, you are a relationship coach, so you have seen probably a little bit of everything, not just in the workplace, but very interested in hearing your perspective on overall your thoughts generally to set the tone on office romances and we're going to talk about how to navigate those, but generally, how do you feel about office romances?
So surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly. I guess it depends on where you fall on this. Um, Lots of our romances happen in the office,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's research that supports that.
Yep.
We spend approximately a third of our time with our coworkers. So we're going to spend a lot of time together with people that we work with. We're going to become more familiar with them. We're going to become intimate with them in many different ways. But speaking specifically
Yep.
outside the romance piece, we're going to be intimate. We're going to have a lot of things in common. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to spend a lot of time with these folks. That's why you hear things like work wives and work husbands, right? You get so familiar with people that you work with, it's often natural to develop a relationship, a romance, a fling, whatever that might be in the office. So, yeah, so I guess that's what happens. And then what are my thoughts? My thoughts are they're natural,
Yeah.
right? Like they happen, they're natural. And I'm going to get into some of the conversation around why that happens. How do we manage that? But they're definitely natural. It's just learning how to manage them, although they're personal situations, learning how to manage them in a professional environment
Yeah.
and learning how to treat that situation in a very professional manner.
So going back to one of your first points, I did pull some statistics, and it did say from Society of Human Resources Management, SHRM, as most people know it, about 42% of workers have dated a colleague at some point in their career. So yes, half the people, places we're working and where we work, there's romances going on. It happens often, so it is a thing. And then I also wanted to bring up, um, because the Academy of Creative Coaching works very closely with HR professionals, professional development professionals, leadership. Part of the reason with us tackling this topic, besides the fact that it's an interesting topic, is also for ACC can help HR professionals that need to coach through difficult situations at work. So both from a relationship standpoint and also from a professional standpoint. And I know, and we have legal people that we can connect you all with too, because there's a lot of legal things around this. I was also reading one statistic that said many companies have policies regarding workplace relationships around 99%. I was surprised at that statistic of organizations have policies regarding romantic relationships in the workplace. 99% of organizations already have stuff in place. So I was surprised at how high that number was.
Uh, if you don't mind, so I'll tie off on that. So I think it's important, right? Especially with the larger companies, right? I've worked for a company that had over 100,000 people in the company. I
Hmm.
worked for a company that had over 50,000 people in the company. Worked for another company that had 25,000 people in the company. So all of these companies realize that these are some of the things that you have to deal with on a consistent basis. Excuse me. So it's better to put the policies and procedures in place up front than to deal with it on the back end. I remember in 2004, I was at one of those companies and I was talking to a friend of mine in HR, and
Hmm.
she showed me the company's research that the biggest, the thing that they would deal with the most in lawsuits going forward for the next, I believe at the time it was 15 years, would be sexual harassment suits,
Yeah.
right? So then that opens up a Pandora's box, a can of worms. And we've now on this stage in the world of social media, we've seen a lot of this play out.
Yeah.
So when we understand that this is just a part of human interaction and human relationships, how do we manage it? And then if we set a precedent in place and we set policies and procedures, now people know what the expectations are
Yeah.
versus, oh, I didn't know. I can holler at her if I want to, right? So creating a space where there's safety in um, building relationships. There's safety in the professional relationship. If there is an agreement to have a romantic relationship, there's safety in that too.
Okay.
So that's what I think. That's why we've come to that point, and that's why we're adding. That's why you're hearing that in so many companies. 99%. I didn't know that number. That seems like a little bit of a high number to me, but my guess is they're probably surveying like Inc. 5,000 companies, and in those companies, I would expect that's 99 or 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, the results came from, again, from SHRM, where those are HR professionals. So companies that have HR professionals, I'm sure they value, that's probably one of their first policies. But as we know, there are a lot of companies that don't even have like a real HR professional.
Mhm.
And then there's probably not policies built around that. But all right, let's dig in. So, what are some common challenges that we see with workplace romances?
I think the first one is, well, gosh, I say first. There are so many that could tie for number one. One of the common challenges is leader and subordinate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting together in a relationship. So I think that's something that obviously creates a conflict of interest. It can create a hostile work environment, even if they're on the same page, even if everything is fine and copacetic with them. But what happens when all of a sudden the leader feels like they've been snubbed by the person that's the subordinate? What happens when the subordinate feels like they've been snubbed by the person that's the leader? Do we feel like now there are opportunities for someone to hold it over someone's head? Do
Right.
we feel like, on the flip side of that, the subordinate to go around and spread rumors or gossip about the leader, right? So I think that's one of the common challenges that people face. Another common challenge is when we're in a, how should I say, when we're in a space where everybody is going out of their way to be very incredibly secretive,
Mm,
right?
okay.
So they've created this space where there's no transparency, right? It's already a workplace of no transparency.
Okay.
So now the romance has to be super secretive. So then if you see them together out somewhere, oh my gosh, Becky Sue is hanging out with Tommy Lee, and how can this happen in our workplace where we think that everything is like unicorns and butterflies and nobody does anything except for professional work?
Yeah.
So I think when you don't have a level of transparency in the workplace, that's a challenge. Gosh, there are probably two or three more that will come to me as we go through the conversation, but those are two that just jump out at me right now.
Okay. What about when, let's say, well, first of all, going back to one of your points. So if someone is over another person, would your recommendation as a coach say do not engage in relationships unless you all are equal in the company?
So let me tell you, I have experienced this with a friend of mine that was at one of those companies I mentioned, and I thought they handled it incredibly well. So the leader and a team member got into a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 weeks after this goes on, they decide they want this to be a relationship. The leader goes to his leadership and tells them they are in a romantic relationship. How transparent is that? That's what we should do, right? Be open, be honest.
Yeah.
So what the leadership said was, so they can't be on the same team. As a matter of fact, they can't even be in the same department. But there was not a space for the subordinate to
Mm,
go to another department. You know what the leader did? The leader quit.
wow.
And they ultimately got married,
Okay.
right? Because the leader showed this level of leadership and commitment, not only in the company, but that's also an incredible level of commitment with, at the time, his girlfriend,
Yeah.
right? That's super commitment. Like, I'm willing to quit my job for you to show you that this is serious, and I'm not going to do it in a way where we're trying to conceal something or we're trying to, hide something from someone. So I think that's a great way to do it, right? If you have that level of commitment to someone, I think if you're just getting together with someone, um, just be mindful that everything you do impacts everyone else in
Mm,
your circle of influence.
right.
So if you decide to date someone that's a leader, understand that now you're going to have to bring that to people's attention because they need to be aware,
Right.
right? Or if
Right.
the leader decides to date someone that's on their team, they're going to have to bring that to someone's attention because they need to be aware, because we need this out in the open. We don't need this as gossip, office gossip that we're talking about at the water cooler. And then, feel free to address it in a way that's integrous and in a way that you're able to honor everybody in the workplace. So I'm not going to tell you not to necessarily date up or down. I'm just going to say be transparent with it and be able to move forward with whatever the fallout of that is. So everybody can be in a place where they're good moving forward.
I love that because as we mentioned at the very top of the program, we at least in Georgia, or I guess it was national, we did see a workplace romance play out. And really, at the end of the day, people can get into a lot of different issues and what it was really about. But at the end of the day, it was about transparency. Because, like you said, had things been transparent, it may have played out very differently. But when you create, it's like once you do that, you're creating a culture of distrust.
Right.
So that's a really powerful point. So what happens, like, let's say they're in a romance, it's work, everything has been transparent, maybe even too transparent, and the relationship has some toxicity with it, or maybe some issues going on personally. How do you separate personal stuff in a professional environment?
Thank you for bringing this up. This is one of the other points I was going to mention when you asked me about common challenges. So thanks for that. Um, so let's take it down from toxicity, right? Let's not go all the way up to toxicity.
Okay.
Let's just say we break up. We
Okay.
just ain't cool no more,
Uh-huh.
right? Now I got to see you every day at work. How does that feel? Can you cut the tension with a knife?
Hmm.
Are the people in the space, are they feeling awkward because y'all feel awkward working together, right? Do you now are you looking at someone sideways because they are giving you constructive feedback or constructive criticism because you have a deeper seated issue with them because your relationship is not the same way it used to be? We love to think that we're better than that and we can remove our biases, but we can't,
Mm.
right? That's just going to be a part of the grieving process of relationship. It's a part of the healing process, all the things. So that's one of those points. I think when we think about, what is that difference between a healthy relationship in a workplace and a problematic one. Um, I think personally, if you're in the same department, or you're working together, I think when you start that relationship, you should likely change departments,
Okay.
right? Be transparent And if everybody involved thinks this can be fine, and think about, so when you're being transparent, think about all scenarios. Well, what if she slashes your tires tomorrow? You gonna be able to work with her?
Right. Right.
Are you really? Right. So think about these things. And look, I'm not gonna be stereotypical. What if he comes over and does something to your house, right? So be able to understand and work through these scenarios. But I think it's good to be in, at least if it's not separate departments, separate teams,
Mm.
so it minimizes the level of interaction. And to be honest, let's look at the romantic side, because I'm a relationship coach first. I want to not have to see you all day so I can appreciate you when we come home and we
Mhm.
can have something to talk about, as opposed to the fact that we spent all day together doing all these problems, and now I'm tired. I don't really know if I want to see you for the rest of the day. So
Mhm.
we want to find ways to create healthy space and healthy boundaries. And I think being in, at least separate teams helps to accomplish that.
Yeah. What about public affection at work? Is that a no?
Public affection at work. Let me tell you about a company that I know of. So I know a company that encourages in
What?
2024, watch this. I'm not going to say public affection. They encourage people to connect and have romantic relationships if they choose to, right?
Interesting. Okay.
And now they have, I'm not going to call the company's name out, but they call them company babies, right? So when they have a baby, they call it the company baby, and they bring the baby around, all this and that.
Mhm.
So with that, they have created a culture where you're respectful of one another and you honor one another. If you do get together, you get in different departments, right? They'll find a way to move you around and get in different departments. They won't let you go. They'll figure out a way to make it work. They've done it dozens of times. And with the public displays of affection, what I've seen, because I didn't work for that company, but somebody close to me has, and I've been around that company a lot. What I've seen is it's limited to something like, some of these folks, a lot of them get married, right? So if you're with your wife, you see your wife, you give her a kiss, move on. It's nothing too deep, right? So I think that that's one way of handling it, because the culture is accepting of that. I think you have to look at whatever the culture looks like. If
Okay.
the culture is not accepting of that, then it's going to be challenging, because you're going to make people uncomfortable. Um, I would encourage people who are in a relationship to be very cautious of this, because you don't want to create a situation where someone may feel like they need to say something to you, even though you're transparent about everything. Everything's fine. If you're, kissing at work, if you're being super affectionate at work, if this is making some other folks uncomfortable, maybe it's an opportunity just to kind of, create that space. If you meet each other for lunch away from work and you want to give them a kiss and a hug, fine. But I think just be cognizant of the culture, and then if you're not really sure what the culture looks like, I would defer to staying away from it. That's my 2 cents. I'd love to hear, Lee, what you think about it, because you deal with this a lot at work in your space.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to what you said about transparency. The times that I've seen it happen,
Mhm.
one of the because I work in a very hierarchical, you know the word,
Yeah.
organization, and so somebody had to leave each time,
Mm.
and so there was no room for it really working that well. Um, but I did want to talk about another topic before we
Okay.
get into some coaching strategies in the workplace.
Hmm.
Married and starting a business.
Hmm.
I, at the heart of who I am, I'm an entrepreneur. I love, and my dream is always like I want to work with who I'm in love with, right? I want to build something together. So, how difficult can that be? What are some tips if you are married and you say, "Hey, babe, let's start a business together." What should we look out for?
That's a great question, Lee. So, and you threw me a curveball because that's not on my
I know
list,
that's not
but
in my
that's okay. I love it. I love it. I'm always prepared. This is my kind of stuff. I love it. Love it. Love it.
pocket, just the two of us.
No, it's just the two of us. That's right. That's right. Nobody else. So my thoughts there are, two of my closest friends here in Atlanta are married and started a business together, and now they've grown that business to 8 figures, and they're
Yeah.
killing the game. They do a great job with it. Um, the folks that I know, and I know some other folks that are married who have phenomenal businesses. The people that I know that are married and start a business together, typically, a couple things I've seen that work. I know you asked me what didn't work, but what I've seen that works is they develop a plan together and they stick to that plan,
Mm,
right? So if it's for example, one of the couples, one person left corporate America, the other one stayed in for a while to make sure that they had the revenue to support the family while they were growing the business together.
that's good.
Then the other person left and they grew the business together. um, even in entrepreneurship, there's still a hierarchical nature of the entrepreneurship, right, of a business. So whether it's a
Hmm.
big law firm or corporation or tech company, whatever it is, there's a hierarchy there. But then if you're a small company and you've got 5, 10 people, there's still a hierarchy,
Right.
right? So whatever that hierarchy looks like, you have to build that and develop that and be okay with that, as you work through the business. So everybody plays their role and or roles, right? Because when you're small, you're growing, you got multiple roles. And then the one other thing I would say is it's important. It's really, really, really important to set time aside to push the business away.
Yeah.
We're not talking about business. We're not thinking about business. I don't care what that text message said. I don't care what that woman did to you at work. I don't care what that man, how he was throwing a fit. I don't, that's fine. We're just going to have fun, enjoy each other, go look at the sunset or walk in the park or go on a vacation and let the business stuff go so we can enjoy each other. Because when you get those chances to recharge together, now you enjoy building together because you're always looking forward to that next chance to recharge.
Okay, I'm gonna throw you another curveball, but
I'm
it's
ready.
just the two of us talking.
It's cool.
Ignore everybody else.
It's cool.
Um, because I've read I've used your devotional, your book, and we've talked spiritually, and we share some of the same values. I sometimes, when I have tried this, struggle with the submission piece and running a business because I can put on more of the dictator boss hat and think I'm smarter than everybody and maybe cut down or not be respectful. I'm not disrespectful, but balancing those roles as a husband and wife, especially if the woman is maybe the CEO or the lead in a business. How do you handle when there might be a role switch if it's a business relationship?
I love that question. I think that's an amazing question. So everybody check this out. And if you're in Atlanta women, y'all really need to hear this. So y'all can be mad at me later about it. So here's the thing. I'm gonna use myself as an example. So I have a lovely wife here. I'm not married to our CEO, but our CEO is a woman. In our work, as much as you see us go back and forth, I have to submit to our CEO.
Mm,
I honor that opportunity to submit to her,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
If we were married, when we go home, guess what? The submission will flip a little bit, right? It's still, biblically, it still says,
Yeah,
husbands serve your wives as well, right? So I'm not saying that I'm just going to be, I'm the king all of a sudden. I'm
right,
not,
right.
but there's going to be a little bit different level of leadership when we're at home. So I think that both people have to come into the relationship, not only the personal relationship, but the business relationship, understanding that our roles in the business may be different than our roles at home. And we have to understand it. We have to honor it. We have to commit to it. We have to respect the other person. And no matter what, we are we are in this for the long run together. We're
Mm,
in this for the long haul together, both the business and the marriage.
yeah.
So, if my wife and she's a strong-willed woman. I'm glad she's not here to hear that right now. She'll catch it on the replay. If we were working in business together and she was a CEO, I'd have to submit.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
And then, we'd have to flip it later. But I think that when both people are on the same page with that, Lee, it's a game changer. And again, the friends that I mentioned, they have that dynamic, and I've seen it, and it works incredibly well when both people are committed to it.
I think that's the key, is making sure both people are committed. And then I won't say just for the woman, because I'm sure the man has to check it as well. But sometimes, I'm just talking to women right now. Sometimes we have to be very intentional and aware of which hat we're wearing, because we can forget to take it off, and we go into a situation with our spouse, and we're running stuff and not being aware of what we're doing. And I think about my first marriage. I was married to a pastor, which is kind of like an entrepreneur, in a different kind of way. And it was exciting because we're building and we're running and we're doing things together. And then I'm managing people at work. And I come into a church situation when we're making decisions and planning and programming, and I'm still wearing the hat that I wore at work. And that can cause tension. Like, wait, no, you're not the manager right now. You're my wife. You're the first lady. I need you to, and not saying that they can't run things, but you've got to, like, just be aware of every hat, every role that you're wearing, and being very talented and gifted at when to take it off and put it back on.
Absolutely. And I would add to that for the men, right? I mentioned something to the women, but for the men, same thing. So we have to understand that if we're in a role where we are second in command or third in command, fifth in command, doesn't matter. When you go to work, when you go to your job and you're not the CEO, and by the way, even the CEO has somebody to answer to, he has a board of directors and his customers, or
Mhm.
right. So, but if you go to work and you're not the CEO, you always have somebody to answer to, and you're not really fighting it.
Yeah.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you have somebody to answer to, and that just happens to be your amazing wife, don't fight it. Work together,
Yeah.
paddle together. The business is going to go farther. Your marriage is going to be better. Everything is going to truly work out for the good. So I just think that's an important point for both sexes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about coaching through the complexities of it. And I think that the key part is communication. So as a coach, and I guess depending on who the audience are, but what are some tips and strategies that you would offer, coaching through some workplace situations and romances?
Okay. So are you thinking about um
Let's
coaching a couple that go ahead, I'm sorry.
go ahead. I think we're going in the same direction.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing you say is like coaching a couple that is trying to figure out how to navigate their relationship at work.
Yeah. So, well, actually, two scenarios. Coaching a couple, what what advice would you give them? And then, as an HR, let's say an HR company comes to ACC and says, "Hey, we're seeing this running around in our company. Our HR professional needs some help in coaching through situations at work." So situations at work, talking from a professional leadership standpoint, management standpoint, and
Mhm.
then what would you advise couples that they know they're in it, they don't want to lose their jobs, it's
Right.
going to cause tension. What do you do?
So let's start with the couples. So the couples know that this is a situation and they're in it. They don't want to lose their jobs. They want to stay employed. And we're going to add that they've already been transparent about it.
Yeah.
So now, how do you manage it? I think the first thing and the most important thing is, because I saw this firsthand, don't bring what happens at home to work.
Mm,
Do not bring what happens at home to work. I
mm,
saw someone that was non-badged come into our work. She did the what's the thing where you just follow somebody through the door, tailgating through the door.
mhm.
and took her husband into an office and berated him loud enough for the entire floor to hear.
Yeah.
Right? Crazy. So leave all that at home.
Yeah.
You can't bring any of that to work. Like, you have to be able to separate work from home. Um, One other thing I think that's really important when you think about how couples manage this is to communicate very clearly about things that are going on at work and things that are going on at home, because you want to be as professional as possible at work. Because now you are, everyone knows that you have a relationship with this other person.
Right.
And if you show yourself to be professional and you manage it really well, not only do you look like, oh, well, you got a handle on that, but now it's even a higher level of respect because you do have a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend at work and you handle it incredibly professionally. People see that. People see that you are handling your business, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
So I think those two things are important for couples. From the HR professional standpoint or from the manager standpoint, um, I think the most important thing is to be clear about your expectations.
Mhm.
So whatever your expectations look like, I think you need to sit the couple down, be clear about those expectations, define them. If you need to write up a one pager for them to sign, let them
Oh,
know, this isn't like a performance thing or anything like that. This isn't a threat. This isn't, anything like that. There's no progressive discipline. It's not that. But we want you to know, and we want to know that we're on the same page, so we know that you all are able to manage it and we are able to manage to the situation, to the scenario. So I think that's helpful. And the second thing is to be I think there's a place where you can be understanding and empathetic, because there may be, there could be something that happened in the family that's causing grief or causing hurt or causing pain. And they may not argue, they may not, bring any of that to work, but
yeah.
but some of the energy may be on their face.
Yeah.
Some of those things may be just around them. So be empathetic to them, be willing to talk to them. Um, open the door for them to go to their EAP if necessary, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, to make them feel good about being a part of the team and understanding that they have management that supports them in this relationship.
I love it. I love it. Just one more thing before we start to close up. So boundaries.
Mhm.
And you touched on it a little bit, but I would imagine the recommendation for a couple is not to share things about your relationship with coworkers.
So
Sometimes that's difficult because your coworkers are often your closest friends. You work with them and see
your
them.
coworkers can be your sounding board,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's challenging. I would offer that you have discussions with your closest friends.
Mhm.
So if a coworker is a close friend, yes, because we need outlets. We need to be able to vent. We need to be able to do these things because we don't want to come back and snap on our wife or our husband, right? We need the
Right.
outlet. But I would encourage everyone out there, share with your closest friends. If the friend is a coworker, that's great. If the friend is somebody outside the organization, that's great. If they're kind of an associate and you really don't have a relationship like that, I wouldn't go there.
Mm,
Because here's the thing, often we tell people something in confidence and we really don't expect them to share it, but they may share it without trying to quote unquote tell on you, right? They are
mhm.
just sharing to share their day, their experiences. But if they tell the wrong person, now it becomes gossip. And
Yeah.
they may not know who's the wrong person. And they may not even share names, but sometimes things can just become, um, you know, easy to understand or find out when you just kind of put the pieces together.
Right.
So I would just encourage folks to share with their friends, if they're a coworker or not. And if they're not, I would definitely keep them out of it.
Okay. Any other boundaries we need to look out for or give people advice on?
Yeah, there's one other boundary. I think this is an important boundary. I remember seeing this in some of my places of employment. Um, You can have a relationship with a really close, like a manager, and be really close with that manager.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, and I actually think that's great. I think it's good to have relationships up or down, lateral, what have you. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that that person may have a certain loyalty to the company where they have to talk about things that you may share with them,
Yeah.
right? So just keep that in mind. There may be some things that you can't share with your direct manager, your manager above them, your manager with a dotted line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another manager in another department that has nothing to do with this, but the manager's talking manager meetings,
Yeah.
right? Just be aware of that. So I think that's an important boundary.
Great. Great advice. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. All right. Well, we talked about a lot of different topics, communication, boundaries, pitfalls, things that could happen, and tensions that could happen. We've talked about being married and starting a business together, and things, public affection, displays of affection
Yeah.
in the workplace. So we've covered a lot of ground in these 30 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. Any other last minute tips before I get into my sales piece?
Sure, sure. I think the last things that I would share is relationships are important. We need relationships. It's one of our basic human needs. Don't let anybody tell you any differently. It's just as important as water and breathing and shelter and clothing and sex. You need a relationship, right? This we're put here to be connected to one another. So it's going to happen at work. Don't be embarrassed by it. Just understand to handle it professionally, handle it with dignity, right? So if you do wind up connecting with someone, it doesn't work out, still be kind to them, still be respectful to them, still, have a dignified relationship. At the same time, don't let the flip side of that is make sure that you don't allow someone to put you in a situation where you're blackmailed or bullied or abused or taken advantage of in any sort of way, right? And the first time those things happen, go to your HR professional, go to your manager, if that's not the person, go to whoever you need to talk to get this out on the table, get it out in the open so it can be dealt with and it's not something that's swept under the rug. I think workplace relationships can be great. I know lots of people who have been married and had children from workplace relationships, and so I encourage you, if that's how you want to rock, do your thing.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, and I think because as we mentioned, it's happening, and we can't act like it's not, and then be surprised when it does happen, and act like we don't know what to do with it. So thank you for just being open to that. One of the things that I wanted to mention, well, a couple of things that of opportunities that I'm hearing. Number one is I want to correct something I said. I called your book a devotional. It's not a devotional. Before you jump the broom, right?
Hmm.
And but it just had so many powerful questions at the end of every chapter. It felt like we were working through a devotional. But I wanted to encourage you in the link. We can share the link if you'd like. But I thought it was really powerful that um, in relationships, how important it is to, even if you can't do it on your own, but something or someone to force you to regularly ask each other hard questions. And I think that especially working together, because things come up, and it doesn't even have to be about your relationship. It could just be about how you're processing life, right? Or your role at the company and things like that. But it can create a different level of intimacy. So I wanted to mention that. And then secondly, when we talked about, there's a few opportunities here when we talked about people being married and entrepreneurs and starting businesses together. Um, great, great opportunity to seek coaching if you know that you are launching a business with your spouse and you just need it doesn't have to be therapy. It can just be a way to kind of coach yourselves and set up your own culture of how you're going to do life now, reach out to Coach Jay Hurt on that. And then also, as we mentioned, ACC, Academy of Creative Coaching, is definitely here for companies, HR professionals, anyone who either needs coaching certification so that they can work through difficult conversations or leadership issues, and or if you need someone from our team to come into your company and help navigate any of that, please lean in on us.
Can
Um,
I add one thing?
sure.
So to your point, because that's a great point, right? I think that all of us in our relationships, but especially those going into business together, working with their spouse, working with their boyfriend, girlfriend, um, if you take the opportunity, even if you're not going to be a coach, right? Let's say you come through our coach training, you will learn the art of curiosity and
Yes.
learning how to be curious about your spouse, learning how to want to understand them better, learning how to ask questions about them, learning how to be thoughtful, how to think about them in a different way, how to see the world through their lens.
Hmm.
So I think even for those who don't necessarily want to hang a shingle and say
Yeah.
I'm a coach, I think there's an opportunity to create a coaching culture in
Yeah.
your own relationship
Yep.
that can change. It can be game changing, and especially for those of you who are going to work together and be entrepreneurs, coach training would be absolutely amazing for you and your spouse. And I'm gonna speak life for the hundreds of employees that you're one day going to hire. So I just
Yes.
wanted to share that.
Yes. Awesome. And just I love, because one of my favorite characteristics, especially when I'm hiring, is curiosity. I cannot work with or hire someone who's not a naturally curious person. And I do think coaching, coach training, all of that can make you become a better with being curious, and
Yeah,
it's not so self-involved, or
absolutely.
not thinking, you're always thinking past what you see. And so anyway, I think the training is excellent for that, even just aside from the relationships. But great conversation as usual.
Thank
I
you.
love talking to you, Jay. So
Same here.
awesome. So we'll come back next week. We'll be with our coach and author, Dr. Joel Perez, and talking about culture of humility and his latest book, Dear White Leader. And then we have a couple of coach training certifications coming up, one in Atlanta, I believe, next weekend, right?
June 14th. We'd love to have you.
In person.
Mhm.
And we are also going to save this video. Of course, it'll be on social. I've seen people engaging on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And this will also be added to our YouTube page. If you want to reference it again later and can't find it on social media, visit our YouTube page. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jay. And I hope, are you going to watch NBA tonight?
Yeah, I'm a Cowboys fan. I don't have my Cowboys cup here, but since I'm a Cowboys fan, I got to root for the Mavericks. So go Mavs.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, you have a great night tonight. And I hope to see you watching us next week online when we talk to Coach Joel. All right. Have a good night.
Have a great one.